Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's the News? From spring break crackdowns to botox in places it probably shouldn't be. And somehow the people keep peopling. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, all the things. Let's dive in. So it's now spring break season. It reminds me of that movie. I don't remember the name of it. I just remember that it was like Sprang Break and James Franco was in it. Anyways, if you are planning on attending any of the festivities at popular beach destinations or on cruise ships, you may be met with some new restrictions. This is all being done in an effort to curb all of the chaos, destruction, and sometimes violence that often occurs. Some southern beach towns have gone as far to ban alcohol outright, while cruise lines will be issuing warnings to passengers as they board. Apparently, in Panama City, Florida, a temporary safety ban has been approved. This includes overnight beach closures from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. to prevent large late night gatherings and to leave police available to patrol other parts of the city. The city has also banned alcohol on the beach for the entire month of March, and they've imposed restrictions on alcohol sales between the hours of 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. If anyone violates these restrictions, they could face fines, arrest, and or jail time. The police chief has stated that the goal is, of course, to maintain order without discouraging tourism. Gulf Shores, Alabama is also renewing its ban on alcohol on public beaches through the end of April. Officials again saying that these restrictions are intended to curb alcohol fueled disturbances that often strain local law enforcement and emergency services. These crackdowns are a part of a broader trend amongst southern cities who seek to distance themselves from the shenanigans of spring breakers. If you plan on going to Miami Beach, however, you may have a different experience completely. Miami is actually easing their restrictions, although law enforcement will remain highly visible. An official from the Miami Beach Police said that Miami is intentionally trying to distance itself from the chaotic party scene, stating, "We are divorced with spring break." As mentioned before, these restrictions are not limited to beach towns. Norwegian Cruise Lines, in particular, is going to be issuing formal letters to passengers as they board with strict reminders about alcohol use, age limits, and onboard behaviors. You know, I never had crazy spring breaks. I've never really understood it. And maybe it's because I went to school in Miami. So it's kind of like a forever spring break. But I guess we all deserve the American spring break experience. Just use some sense. It's really not necessary to black out to have fun. Coming back to the west side of the country, in California, there is a Planned Parenthood in Marmonte that is now including Botox treatments as a part of its services. This decision was made due to concerns around financial sustainability and apparently from feedback from patients. The chief medical officer for this location stated, "The reality is that our patients now are seeking aesthetic services as a part of their whole well being. Aesthetics is in alignment with what Planned Parenthood stands for. Planned Parenthood stands for bodily autonomy. Planned Parenthood stands for you decide what is best for you and what you need to feel good and to feel like your body is what you want it to be." Recently, Planned Parenthoods nationwide have been facing significant federal cuts because of reduced Medicaid reimbursement. If I may say so, This is absolutely insane. I mean, we are in California, so crazier things have happened. But if you need to go to Planned Parenthood for Botox, should you really be getting Botox? And they claim to be the nation's largest provider of sexual health and education. And now you want to shoot women up so you can basically not go bankrupt? And this so called chief medical officer claiming that they care about well being. And so that's why Botox is a great offering. If you really cared about the well being of women, you would have therapists on tap or people trying to uplift and elevate women to allow them to understand their inner beauty and the importance of that. However, it seems as though it's more about the money than the actual human. And if they're willing to do this, what other lengths have they gone to that ensure that they hit their quarterly quota? Because, with all due respect, even though they claim to be this nonprofit that just cares so much for women at their time of need, at the end of the day, they're a business. And if I can exploit you not feeling good about yourself in one way, it's likely that I'm exploiting you in other ways. In the city of Commerce, California, two students were arrested at their high school after emergency responders arrived due to reports of a bomb threat and an active shooter with people injured. Because of the call, around 200 officers with canines and bomb detection equipment searched the school for several hours. The officers made sure to sweep every classroom, the whole parking lot, and the fields to ensure that there was no threat. Fortunately, no weapons were found, and the bomb threat and incident were discovered to be not credible. However, during their search, the police allegedly found trails of what appeared to be blood, and they found two students also covered in the same substance. After the whole fiasco, the students were arrested and interviewed, and it's believed that the whole situation was a part of a prank. While the students are juveniles, the charges could still carry serious consequences. Something like this is not only an ordeal for all of the emergency services to go through, but it's absolutely traumatizing for the students involved, the teachers, the staff, parents, siblings, friends, family, whoever. Part of me is kind of like, well, they did carry out the prank flawlessly. Suppose it's a little bit mischievous of me. But can we really blame the kids when it's become popular in our culture to do things for attention or for a reaction? There are people who literally make a living pranking people on all forms of social media. Not that I'm validating any of it. I don't want to be that person, but if parents gave their kids structure, discipline, and guided them in understanding the meaning of boundaries, in other words, when too far is too far, would things like this really be happening? Dare I bring up that structure and discipline are meant to be taught by the father? Not saying I know the details of these kids' home lives, but a man is there to teach his kids that there's no problem with being funny. In fact, it's a blessing to be able to make people laugh. But there are lines that you just do not cross. Moving on. So, this is actually from a little more than a week ago, but I found it interesting. A 26-year-old man from Tijuana has been taken into custody by Customs and Border Protection because officers found nearly 1,000 pounds of liquid methamphetamine in his fuel tank as he was trying to make his way into the United States. And somehow he had a business visa. Now, if this gentleman was in an unfortunate situation due to the cartels, I pray for his safety. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of exactly why we're having the whole immigration and ICE situation right now. In Florida, a man has been accused of stealing $500,000 worth of onions and potatoes. The accused was arrested on 8 counts of interstate transport of stolen property, which came from allegations that he defrauded produce suppliers. In one of his defrauding schemes, the gentleman allegedly posed as a company and requested shipments from produce suppliers, and then he changed the shipment address. And of course, he never submitted the payment. In another scheme, he created false documentation to appear as though payment was sent, even though obviously it hadn't been. If convicted, he could face up to 10 years in prison. I guess this is another one of those, these are the things that only happen in Florida moments. In Idaho, a new resolution to overturn the legalization of gay marriage has reached the Supreme Court after a 44 to 26 vote. The House of Representatives is calling on the court to restore the natural definition of marriage, a union of one man and one woman. In 2006, Idaho voters amended the state constitution to define marriage as between one man and one woman. However, in 2014, a federal judge ruled the amendment unconstitutional, which legalized same sex marriage. House members tried to pass something similar last year, but it didn't pass through the Senate. Even if the Idaho House does pass this resolution, same sex marriage would still be legal in Idaho. Idaho, however, is not the only state looking to restore the natural definition of marriage. 9 other states, including Michigan, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas, are also seeking a differentiation for marriage between a man and a woman. In Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas specifically, they don't seek to overturn the legalization of same sex marriage. However, they do want to create a new category called covenant marriage, which would only be for one man and one woman. Moving forward, Ozempic was all the rage when it was thought to help people lose weight. Some people noted when it was popular that Ozempic was actually for people who are challenged by diabetes and that those who choose to take it may want to be careful. Fast forward some time, and the maker of Ozempic is now being sued over allegations of the wrongful death of a woman who died from gastroparesis. This is stomach paralysis, which causes food to pass through the stomach slower than it should. She'd been feeling ill and thought that she had food poisoning due to nausea and vomiting, so doctors prescribed her an antibiotic. However, after a few days, she claimed to have felt that food was regurgitating in her throat. Shortly after, her son found her struggling to breathe, and as her family drove her to the hospital, she aspirated on her vomit and passed. Now, this isn't the only case of Ozempic users experiencing this condition. However, the makers of this drug are, of course, denying the allegations. Over 2,000 individual lawsuits have been filed in Pennsylvania alone. This drug has also been known to cause blindness, among other issues. Now, let's slow down for a moment because, first of all, what happened to the whole fat acceptance movement? I thought the bigger you were, the more beautiful you were. So, why are y'all trying to lose weight now? I thought being fat was a good thing. Anyways, I personally believe, barring any major health challenges, if you gain the weight naturally, you can lose the weight naturally. But what has happened in our society? We want what we want and we want it now. How many people nowadays just order food on the fly, order anything on the fly, much of which is heavily processed? So now it's not just that you're eating synthetic food. This junk is also causing inflammation in your body for sure, among other things internally within you. And for you people who are like, well, I drink diet sodas and I use Splenda and Sweet and Low. Again, synthetic food that is going into your body and messing up your system. I'm not intending to be insensitive, but have some self discipline, create boundaries for yourself, get active. Listen, for me, I know if I bring a bag of chips into my home, as soon as the bag is open and I have one chip, the whole bag is going to be smashed. So I don't keep chips in my home and I keep alternative options. At the same time, I know on the occasion that I do buy that bag of chips, it's okay because it's not a common occurrence. Most people don't even care to go grocery shopping for whole foods, prepare those foods, and then sit down and eat like a functional human. We either buy our food in a box or we buy it in a bag. And then we sit on our couches and then we inject ourselves with more synthetic ingredients. The whole purpose of business is to create solutions for people. Don't get me wrong, I am not in support of or a huge fan of big pharma. I'm quite a hippie. However, you have a problem, which is that you want to lose weight. You want to lose weight now, and you don't want to have to change your lifestyle to do that. A business provided you with the solution to your problem. Two things come to mind: nothing worth having comes easy, and good things come to those who wait. So let's head overseas. So, a few weeks ago, comments were made in regards to Daddy Trump taking down Venezuela first, Iran second, and then going for Cuba. There have recently been protests erupting in Cuba. The government in Havana has contended with US power cuts and pressure for years, which only increased after the snatching of Maduro. The US has also been threatening to impose tariffs on any country who might supply Cuba with oil. Due to the US restrictions on energy supplies to Cuba, there have also been blackouts, which is making citizens unsettled to say the least. And it's led to a lot of violence and vandalism. Cuba is currently said to be in the midst of talks with the US government. Are we tracking the pattern, people? Protests, pressure. Who knows what Trump has planned next? In China, they've seemingly figured out how to functionally provide health insurance for one. In China, they've seemingly figured out how to functionally provide health insurance for 1.3 billion people. China has made significant public health gains in recent years as incomes have been rising, which has lifted many people out of poverty. And also, they've increased the life expectancy to the age of 79. Although growth has occurred, each province itself has its own processes and funding remains limited. Private medical care is growing, but some access gaps still exist. About 95% of the population is covered by the public basic insurance, and it's split into an urban employee program, which is funded by payroll contributions, and then a resident program that covers children, those who are not formally employed, and rural populations. We'll have to see how their universal healthcare works out and if they're going to win that race as well. Let's move on to the whole Iran situation. First of all, quiet as it's kept, most countries in the Middle East are very happy about this war and also about bringing the Islamic regime down. And many of them are starting to openly express their disdain for Iran because they've been continuously attacked by Iran. An expert in Kuwait specifically was interviewed and explicitly stated that Iran is a bigger threat than Israel. You can watch it here.
إذا سألتك اليوم من هو الأخطر على العالم العربي، إسرائيل أو إيران؟
إيران.
أخطر من إسرائيل؟
نعم.
ليه؟
إيران في أفريقيا، إيران في لبنان، إيران كانت في سوريا وقتلوا الناس وقتلوا الأطفال. إحنا إيران جيرانهم صواريخهم طاحت علينا. شفت صواريخ إسرائيلية طاحت علينا؟ لم نشاهد صواريخ إسرائيلية طاحت علينا. إحنا اللي ضربنا إيران، اللي تجسس علينا وضرب ناقلاتنا إيران، الذي عمل خلايا تجسس وخلية العبد لإيران، الذي فجر المقاهي الشعبية عندنا في الثمانينات جماعات تابعة لإيران. إيران تقول أنها سوف تسترد الإمبراطورية الفارسية.
Obviously, this comes as no surprise to anyone who isn't a part of Gays for Palestine. Iran is actually starting to take notes from Israel as they began issuing some evacuation orders for several places, including the UAE, therefore giving it away that they were planning on attacking their Arab neighbors. In addition, the Saudi crowned prince, among many of the other Gulf state leaders, are quietly pressuring Trump to continue striking Iran hard and to remove the military threat. Now, last week we spoke about the fact that Trump and Bibi allegedly began this war because there was some sort of imminent threat headed for the US. I would just like to reiterate whether or not there was some sort of threat, attacking Iran was necessary because they have been attacking us and everywhere around the world for years. And no one has ever done anything to devastate them enough to stop. Now, the first terror attack that I really remember, of course, is September 11th. Now, we have conspiracy theories. However, we're just going to stick with what is considered true right now. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of attacks by Iran's proxies, special groups, and individuals who have been influenced by Iran directly or indirectly. In March alone, there have been more than a handful of terror-related events, several of which several of which have led to deaths in the United States alone. And anyone with a touch of sense might say, well, they're attacking us because we're attacking them. But as it's been stated by many people, we target their military and terror infrastructure. They target civilians. It would be one thing if they sent suicide bombers, shooters, and stabbers to the Pentagon or the White House or to governors' mansions across the country or to army bases or the Naval Academy, wherever. There are endless opportunities to go after American military infrastructure within the United States. But instead, Iran and their henchmen harm innocent people in Austin bars, Christians in New York. They threaten to detonate bombs on a plane in Nashville, threaten to detonate a bomb on a flight going to Atlanta, threaten to detonate bombs at a Kansas City airport, threaten to detonate bombs at churches all across the United States. In California, two gentlemen were sitting at a cafe minding their business, speaking Hebrew, and they were beaten. I will not say that I'm glad that this is happening here in the United States. However, it's about time that we have the first-hand experiences of these attacks consistently. People here are so quick to blame Israel for problems in the Middle East and to make Israel the bad guy because Israel has done its best to keep its citizens safe and separates innocent civilians from people who pose threats. But even Israel isn't exempt. Israel goes through this yearly, monthly, dare I say weekly, bus bombings, cafe stabbings, road shootings, car rammings. The list and the circumstances go on and on and on. And what did Israel do? Israel built up their defense systems and attempted to warn the folly people of the West. Just in the last couple of weeks, a man aged 47 was wounded in a stabbing in Ramat Gan, in addition to two other terrorists attempting to crash their car into and shoot soldiers. Now, if anyone tried to run their car into soldiers and or shoot them here in the United States, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. It's already happened, not from terrorists. Now that this insanity is seemingly becoming more common here, we might want to express more gratitude for our Second Amendment rights. All that to say, a big thank you to President Trump and the US military infrastructure, and also to Bibi and all of the Israeli Defense Forces. To wrap us up on Iran, Reza Pahlavi released a video stating, to ensure that Iran does not experience disruption in governance with the fall of the Islamic Republic, two important efforts have been made in recent months. developing a clear plan for managing the country and identifying and selecting women and men suitable to serve in the transitional framework and implement this plan. The transitional framework under my leadership will be ready to take over the governance of the country the moment the Islamic Republic falls, and in the shortest possible time, establish order, security, freedom, and the conditions for the prosperity and flourishing of Iran. It looks like the layers are slowly being peeled back for the day after plan. On top of the fact that Tucker Carlson has apparently been working for Iran and Mojtaba Khamenei might be gay, but we're not going to go there. In Israel, they're realizing that our forefathers had the right idea when they made guns our Second Amendment right. The government recently approved that an additional 300,000 residents of Jerusalem are eligible to apply for gun licenses. This move was enacted based on the view that weapons in the hands of responsible citizens are an important component in strengthening personal security and enabling a rapid response to terrorist and criminal incidents, as stated by the National Security Ministry. Obviously, those eligible will still need to meet the requirements stipulated by Israeli law. There's a relatively new organization making waves called ATIDA. This organization was created by a woman named Esty Solomon, who saw an opportunity to help Haredi women who desire to serve acclimate to life in the army. She has had many people against her protesting in front of her home because the army is said to be a heresy for the Haredi lifestyle. However, the Haredi lifestyle also is a life in which the wife has to be the breadwinner in the home because her husband is learning Torah all day, on top of having tons of children and turning the house into a home. So one moment. This really baffles me because I would think after spending so much time learning Torah, the men would understand the reverence and gentleness that women are meant to exist in. It seems like there's some confusion about where the Shekhinah is supposed to dwell, but I digress. Due to ATIDA, there are now over 600 women working in high-tech units in the IDF, and that number is said to rise over 800 by the end of 2026. The organization's mission is to strengthen the economic well-being of Haredi society by empowering women with advanced technological careers by enabling them to integrate into Israel's defense high-tech sector while preserving their religious values and cultural identity. Many of these women seek rabbinic approval to work in certain areas, so Haredi rabbis have also been incorporated into the program. Such a beautiful idea. So that's all we have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.